บยินดีต้อนรับครับ Welcome back to another coding session with Spot Skills วันนี้จะต่อไปจากครั้งที่แล้วครับเรอยากทบทวนเราทำอะไรบ้างครับเพราะว่าเราก็จนถึงส่วนสุดท้ายครับ We've almost reached the last section of our page and we're going to work on this footer section of ours and I personally don't like the way they've done it here. We can make it look like this for sure แต่ผมอยากใช้ดูชัดเจนกว่านี้ครับ I want to make it look a little bit cleaner and a little bit nicer, so I am going to change it up a little bit. But as a review, what have we done? เราเปลี่ยนไปจากวิธีนี้จาก responsive หรือจากธรรมดาครับ and let's zoom back out, and we went from this kind of a layout to having everything arranged sort of horizontally, really nice and clean and wide, and having enough space, and having plenty of room to be able to look at all of our elements, to wanting to change it so that when we have smaller screen sizes, หน้าของเราจะเปลี่ยนไปอัตโนมัติครับไม่ต้องเปลี่ยนไปwe don't have to change anything manually. We can just change it as we make the page shrink and get smaller and smaller. So how do we do that? We implement what are called media queries. And media queries just take small little sections of our page and we modify them a little bit and tweak them out a little bit to get them to apply or adjust to the screen sizes we want. So it becomes somewhat of a manual process, but we get responsive adaptation right away from our pages. So ตอนนี้ผมจะเริ่มใช้ส่วนนี้เริ่มใช้เปลี่ยนไปส่วนนี้ครับ and we're going to start off with our footer section. So in here, what I'm going to do is type in footer contact และตอนนี้ใช้ flex ทีนี้ครับผมจะเก็บ flex และตอนนี้มีทางวิธีคือ flex คือ row ครับ that's the default for the flex when I just type in display flex. So if I look at here display flex, automatically ทางคือ flex direction คือ row ผมจะเปลี่ยนไปถึง column. So all we're going to do is type in flex direction and column, and there we go. Now we have all of these on top of each other, but they're centered because they still have the center justification, text align center, and justify item center, and align items in the center. So what I want to do is make sure that these actually go to flex start. So flex direction, or sorry, justify content, flex start, and that should take my items to the starting of, align items, flex start, and that'll take my items over to the left hand side. Perfect. Now there's a lot of space in between here. Space majak tinai kap, space tini majak, more than likely it's coming from the padding that I have here, 20 pixels all around in my contact item. ผมอยากเปลี่ยนไป padding ข้างในนี้ครับ so what I'm going to do is change up the padding in here and change the padding to be probably 5 pixels top and bottom, and I want 10 pixels left and right, and we'll see what that looks like. So now that I've done that, a little bit nicer, but I still want to have probably around 10 pixels, 15 pixels on the top and bottom, and probably around 15 pixels. So let's just do 15 pixels all around and see what that looks like. That might be a little too much space, but that looks okay. ถ้าเกิดว่าอยากเปลี่ยนไปทางข้างบน or individual item, what I can do here is put the padding on the top because I like the padding on the top for the 15 pixels top and bottom, and then 0 on the, 15 pixels all around. และทีนี้ per item, I can do a padding bottom, and we can just do 5 pixels per the bottom, and we'll see what that looks like. That'll bring these in much nicer, much cleaner. And I'll do a column gap here. เพราะว่ามี column gap ทีนี้ครับถ้าเกิดว่าเปลี่ยนไป column gap ทีนี้ถึง 10 pixels, we'll see that'll shove these items over a little bit to the left, which is fine. And then the padding I can change here to be 0 pixels over there. So that might actually work. So let's try padding 0 here, padding 0 pixels, and column gap of 10 pixels. And that should look much better. I am missing something here, and I'm trying to figure out what that is. That's my column gap. That is my display. So this is still coming from the footer contact item. Because I have a typo. I'll load it up. Like wait, something's just not right. Okay, there we go, much nicer. So now we have all these items taken care of. This area looks really bad. This area looks really ugly. What happened? Me grid le me tini crunch together because we have a smaller space. So we want to stack these on top of each other. And since we have here a grid, I believe we did grid, จำไม่ได้แต่เราเห็นว่าทีนี้ข้างในนี้ใช้ grid ได้ครับ so we can just change up this column template to 1FR and there we go. Now all of these are stacked on top of each other. Cool. That looks much better. So ใน page ของเรา footer, site, nav, and we're going to do a grid template columns. Grid template columns, 1FR, and done. Looks much nicer. They're all stacked on top of each other. Now this web hosting logo, แล้วแต่คุณครับใช้ในกลางกัน or กลางหรือถ้าเกิดว่าอยากใช้ left or right แล้วแต่คุณครับ so I'll leave that up to you, but I am going to do something. I'm going to bring that up a little bit and reduce the size of it. So what I'm going to do is footer site nav. I believe I call this footer site nav logo. So footer site nav logo image, and I'm going to change the width of this to, let's say, margin top to, let's say, just 50 pixels. I believe right now it's 150 pixels. So now that distance became shorter, and footer site nav, we have a, where did it go? Oh, sorry. Footer site nav image is what I wanted to take a look at. There we go. So that now gets it from my media query, and 50 pixels seems like it's a lot. Maybe I should reduce this down to 20 pixels or just say 0 and see what that looks like. And actually that looks much better at 0 pixels. ถ้าเกิดว่าอยากเปลี่ยน image width or size, width make it 30%, we can make it smaller, and now it'll be much smaller, much nicer, and still centered. And now we can work on these useful links down here. I'm not going to change this. ผมไม่เปลี่ยนไปทีนี้เพราะว่าผมคิดว่าดูโอเคครับดูดีแต่จะเปลี่ยนไป product สถานีส่วน product ของเราครับและข้างในส่วน product ของเราครับ .footer product links และเราเห็นได้ทีนี้คือมี div footer product links and ข้างใน UL เราทำให้ grid and we did a repeat 1FR, so we can change that to a grid template columns 1FR and make it 2 rows per or 2 items per row และเปลี่ยนไปถึง3ทีนี้ that looks much cleaner and much nicer than what we had before และสุดท้ายครับ we can work on changing this up. Now this is a weird thing. ทีนี้มี subscribe เป็น button ธรรมดาครับแต่ในสมัยก่อนเมื่อไรเราจะใช้กลางกว่าธรรมดาจะมี rounded corners ทำอะไรบ้างครับ what happened? So when I copied in the buttons into our media query เมื่อไรผมจะใส่ button ข้างใน media query มี border radius command ที่นี่ถ้าเกิดว่าผมลบ border radius จะ override ทั้งหมด border top bottom left right section or customization ของเราครับก็ผมอยากใช้ border radius แต่ที่นี่จริงๆไม่จำเป็นต้องใช้ border radius 10 pixels เพราะว่าเราใช้ border radius 10 pixels จากข้างบนแล้วครับ so we're not changing anything here, so I don't need to bring it in, so it's okay. So I can erase that and leave this here, or we can just customize it. แล้วแต่คุณครับ up to you on how you want to do this. You can either get rid of the border or the button up here, or you can keep the button here and customize the radius down below here. So I'm going to keep the border radius there, and I'm going to go ahead and customize the button. It's good review anyway. So dot footer, in the form we have dot footer form subscribe, dot footer form subscribe, and in here I'll do a border top right radius 50 pixels, border bottom right radius 50 pixels, and border left top, border top left, sorry, 0 pixels, and border bottom left, 0 pixels. And that will give me the same exact effect as I wanted. ตอนนี้จะแค่เปลี่ยนไป we're going to make this thinner. And how would we know how to make that thinner? We can just change the inputs here, and let's just say 10 pixels. Let's try that, and we'll try 10 pixels here and see what that looks like. All right, looks pretty good. Maybe this one we might want to go 9 pixels, and looks good. So we can change that up, and now we can copy that whole thing and pop it in here. So dot footer, form input, padding, and we'll change this to the input. And there we go. Whoops, that did not take. Footer, form, input, padding. That still did not take. So what am I grabbing wrong? Did I spell that incorrectly? Oh, I put footer, form, input, input. I'll load it up. So that should change it up to where they are now, looking nicer. All right, so we have come to the conclusion of our formatting for responsiveness. เราทำให้ทั้งหมดแล้วถึง responsive แล้วครับ ดูอย่างไรบนโทรศัพท์เราจะรู้อย่างไรครับ So here in our developer tools, we have a device toggle toolbar. And if I click that, I'm going to be able to see this on what I call the iPhone 6, 7, or 8. And depending on your browser, แล้วแต่ browser ของคุณอาจจะมีหลายวิธี or หลายโทรศัพท์มือถือครับ so there's many different types of cell phones. For here I'm going to use the iPad 6, 7, or 8, and I'm going to change this to landscape เพราะว่าผมแค่ทำให้ responsive ให้768 so I want to make sure this is on my 768 instance and see how this looks on the 768 เพราะว่า media query ของเราทำบน 768 pixels. So we really want to make sure that it's on the wider side. Cool, it looks good so far. Looks good so far, looks good. All of our spacing looks okay on the side. All of our buttons look okay. The spacing looks pretty good. All the elements are arranged, they're even. And at a first glance, it looks pretty good. We have our logo here, we have our contact here, our logo, and our useful links and our product, and everything looks pretty good. Cool. All right, so we've done one type of responsive already. Now ถ้าเกิดว่าเราเปลี่ยนไปถึง400ขนาด414ครั้งครับดูไม่ดีครับมีปัญหามากครับแก้ปัญหานี้อย่างไรครับโอ้ไม่รู้จำไม่ได้ Don't worry ไม่ต้องคิดเกี่ยวกับนี้ครับเพราะว่าแค่จำเป็นต้องทำเหมือนกันแบบนี้ครับ so we can take in the same exact thing we did here on our media query and we can apply the same exact logic to the 414. And so now if we do that, media query max width, let's just say 400 pixels, and we can do a dot container, and we can say width is going to be, instead of, I think up here we said 90%, we can do 90% of 440, so 414. And now when we reload it, all right, cool, it looks a little bit better. We've taken up the 100% of our width here. We've got to arrange these elements up here a little bit. It's got to change those up. We've got to arrange these into a grid frame 1 by 1 by 1. And the shared hosting, all 6 of these look okay. This needs to be shrunk down a little bit into less number of pixels. But then otherwise, our footer even looks still pretty decent. It doesn't look that bad. So there's fewer changes we got to make for this size. So next time, we'll talk about how to make these changes. But for now, go ahead and try it. Maybe we grab this about content here, and we'll just do about offer, about, I can't remember what I called this, about offer content, about card, there we go, about cards. And we can just change that to about cards. And we can do grid template, and we can just do 1FR. We can get rid of the display grid, and we can do a reload, and hopefully that will change. Give me just a moment, and we'll take a look at why that did not change. So we're in the About section, we're in the Container section, we're in the About Cards section, and it's still grabbing from the 768 because we have gone for 400. We are still wider than that, so I want to do 420, let's just say. There we go, and that changes. So now I've got to just add in some space above the top of these cards to be able to give it some breathing room for the Read More button. And I can do that. About card, margin top of 30 pixels. And we'll be able to see that change happen. And now we have more room in between those elements. So cool. Our services looks pretty good. Don't have to change much there. Now on these, on the request callback, I can change the width. แค่จำเป็นต้องเปลี่ยนไปขนาดน้อยกว่านี้ครับ So if I go down to the contact section, inside my contact form, now I'm inside my container. I know that that's 90%, which is okay. Contact form content. I have my contact form input, which my width is 500 pixels, much wider than what I'd like. So now I can change this to contact form input, and width for here I want to have it 350 pixels and see what that looks like. So scroll down. All right, much nicer, much cleaner. And same thing with the image, contact form image.img, and I can change the width here to 350 pixels. I don't have to change the layout or anything. All I have to do is just change the width, and there we go. Much nicer. And now it's automatically responsive. So whether I have the 768 landscape version, looks like this, and things are much wider, things are more open, there's more space, or I have this thinner 400 pixel version. Now this is what it'll look like on a web mobile device. I just want to change this up maybe a little bit and go to the very top and just change up the arrangement there. And maybe I want to go stack them on top of each other, or I might want to have them even smaller in size. So it's completely up to you, but let's grab these elements and put them down in here. And we'll fix this up to, let's say, margin 10 pixels, and I want to have this be margin 15 pixels. And that'll make that a bit smaller. And nav image width, we'll change this up to 30%. So it's much smaller. And for here, I want the font size to be 10 pixels. And we're getting closer to where we want to be, 5 pixels and 5 pixels. And we are almost, let's change this up to 20%. And what else can I change? Let's take a look at where the sizes are coming from for that. So that's my nav, and let's take a look at, whoops, nav logo. So that nav logo is still taking up a lot of space. So how can I make that nav logo image smaller? I can give it a standard width of, let's just say, 100 pixels. And that will make it much smaller. Oops, sorry, much bigger. Oh, sorry. And we'll give it 30 pixels of width. And now we've got everything correct and floating together next to each other. So I've got my navigation, I've got my logo, I've got my headings. I can change all of these headings if I want to. ถ้าเกิดว่าอยากเปลี่ยนไปแล้วก็ทำให้เล็กกว่าทำได้ครับ So up to me and up to you on how you want to change all of this. But now we've got a fully responsive page with a nice navigation, with an intro, showcase, and a About Us page. So ผมหวังว่าอันนี้ช่วยให้สร้าง web page and showed you how to make it responsive on responsive. So we've got our responsive page here on 768. We've got it ready for mobile as well, and we've got it pretty functional for whichever mode, landscape or vertical, and we can take a look at it on different phone sizes as well. Maybe we got to make it even smaller for the iPhone X. So 375 looks okay there. It's not too bad. We might want to make our container a little bit smaller and reduce the font sizes. But that's really it. So once you have an idea of how to do that, now we went from 768, เราไปจาก 768 ถึง 420, จาก even smaller. Now, one thing that we can do is check out CSS responsive sizes, and I'm going to type in W3 schools because they have a responsive web design and media queries course that's really good, and it breaks down what the popular media query sizes are. And these are the popular media query sizes that we should design for, but we really want to go smaller than 400. We know that width is roughly right around, even on these small devices, 300 some, 375 for the width. And so might have to go even smaller for extra small devices. But this gives you an idea of how to break it down. What we are going to get into, krangna, is the columns, and we'll use a framework called Bootstrap. ผมจะแนะนำครั้งนะ Bootstrap 4 and Introduction to Bootstrap อันนี้คือ framework ของ CSS ครับเราสร้างทั้งหมดนี้ตัวเองครับ we did all of this by ourselves. We built out the HTML as well using custom classes, custom IDs, custom tags, custom everything. So what if we want to use a framework for all of this? ไม่อยากใช้ style CSS อยากใช้ framework. So I'm going to show you how to navigate the framework and look up how to use different elements from the framework and be able to implement CSS without really using a whole lot of CSS files. So ครั้งหน้าเราจะแนะนำทั้งหมดสั่งทั้งหมดเว็บไซต์นี้อีกหนึ่งครั้งใช้ Bootstrap แล้วก็เราจะเห็นว่าใช้อย่างไรกับ JavaScript ใช้อย่างไรกับ framework. So join me next time when we go over Bootstrap and how to implement that technology. And hopefully we'll make an automatically responsive website with just using very minimal coding just in the HTML and make it very responsive for all types of mobile devices right from the get-go. So thank you for joining me. And next time we will go over Bootstrap. ถ้าเกิดว่ามี comment ถ้าเกิดว่ามีแนะนำถ้าเกิดว่ามีน่าสนใจในเรียนเรื่องอื่นๆจะเขียนข้างใน comment และเราจะได้ยินเกี่ยวกับ comment ของคุณครับ Thanks a lot and see you next time.